Welcome to the August the 20th, 1996 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie. We're delighted to have you in our viewing audience, and we're just so very excited to have a very special program for you today. This is our history tape number 284, and we're very honored today to have representatives from the 8th Street Baptist Church. And they're celebrating their 50th anniversary, and first of all, we'd like to welcome Pastor Fred Heath, the head honcho at that church.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, Pastor Heath, we're so honored to have you on the dais today.
Thank you.
Oh, and next, Theo. Theo, we're just so pleased to have you with us today. It's wonderful, and you just look so beautiful. And as one of the charter members, and probably the only charter member that is left at 8th Street Baptist from 50 years ago, I know that you're very proud, and all of the Thomas family is very proud of you for continuing on. And you've got lots to tell us today, haven't you?
Oh, I have a lot to tell you, but I probably don't have time.
All right. Dennis Brown. Dennis, I'm glad to have you here as PR director of this set. We're just so glad that you brought all these folks with you today from a church that's near and dear to you.
Thank you, Ruthie. It's very good to be here today.
Okay. Let's first of all, with your permission, start with Pastor Heath. And Pastor, would you look out into your camera and tell us a little bit about yourself personally and your family? Give us some information about where you came from before you came to 8th Street Baptist, and name your family members, and even down to your grandchildren if you have grandchildren.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Ruthie. Well, in 1980, actually on my birthday, January the 18th, I moved here from La Mesa, Texas. I spent 7 years in the pastorate there, the Bryan Street Baptist Church, and was called to this church. And my wife's name is Billy, and she works for Foley's and has worked for them for some 17 years now. Started out as the bridal consultant, and then she's now working in the men's department. I have 3 boys, my oldest son Fred Jr., middle son Joe, and youngest son Dar. And
where would we find all 3 of these young men?
Well, you can find my oldest son in Hurst, Texas. He lives there with his wife and our 2 granddaughters. We had those 3 boys, and then we had 4 grandboys, and then the 2 grandgirls came along, and I'll have to admit they own the farm.
Okay.
And my middle son lives in White House, Texas, just out of Tyler, and he works for the federal government there. And my youngest son lives in Grand Prairie, Dar, so they're all pretty close.
That's wonderful. Now, how about naming the grandchildren? We better put them on the record, or you're in bad trouble with the grandkids.
All right. My oldest son has 2 daughters, Heather and Hannah. Okay. And my middle son has 2 boys, Blake and Jared. And then my youngest son has 2 boys, Jonathan and Aaron. Right. And I'm proud of myself to be able to name all those kids.
Yes, yes. Aren't you glad I didn't ask you for their birth dates?
I am, and please don't.
I knew we'd be in bad trouble with that.
Be good to the old man today.
Okay. And coming from La Mesa to Grand Prairie, Texas, that was a little bit of change in maybe the geography, and were you pretty well welcomed here?
Well, it was a shock in every way, you know.
Yes. All right.
The country boy hadn't driven on freeways very much, and that's always an education. Of course, coming from a farming community and then coming to the Metroplex, that's a change too. But I came to a great church, and we've had a real great ministry with 8th Street Baptist Church here.
And when you came to the church, how many members were worshiping there with you at that time?
Well,
approx.
I'm not sure. Probably somewhere in resident members, somewhere around 350 to 400 folks.
Yes. And you're in a key location. You haven't told the people in the viewing audience where 8th Street Baptist Church is. That could be on northwest, southwest, or whatever. 8th.
Yes, and I found that out the first time I came to Grand Prairie. I went up and down the wrong 8th Street trying to find the church. But we're on the corner of Southeast 8th Street and Skyline Road. But I understand that Southeast 8th Street is fixing to be no longer.
That's right.
So it's going to be changed to Beltline. So
Right. South Beltline, and you're going to be on the corner of South Beltline and
that's what I hear, a
Yes.
South Beltline and Skyline.
Skyline. So you got two lines going there, haven't you? All right, that's wonderful. We're going to get back with you to get a little bit more history of the
Thank you.
church in just a few minutes, but with your permission, I need to talk with Theo just a little bit.
Good.
When you get to charter members, that's getting right on down the pike a little bit. And Theo, look out into your camera. Tell us a little bit about you and your family. When you came to Grand Prairie, what brought you to Grand Prairie? And we won't ask you why you affiliated with 8th Street Baptist.
Well, when my husband and I married, we moved to Grand Prairie.
All right, and you would name your husband.
That was in 1942,
Okay.
and his name was Jack,
All right,
and we have lived here ever since.
okay. And do you have a family?
Yes, we do.
All right, how about naming them?
We have 5 children. Doug is our oldest, and then we have Andrea and Michael, Robert, and David.
Okay. Do they have families?
Yes, all of them. Doug lives in Houston now and is working with schools.
I see.
And the schools. He has 2 girls, Rhonda and Julie, and they have 2 girls, Courtney and Crystal, and 1 little boy, Anthony.
So you have great grandchildren. How
yes.
wonderful. Mark
Wonderful
of
it
distinction.
is. And then Andy has 2 boys, Matthew and Eric, and they live in Fort Worth. Then Mike has Jeremy and Jana. Neither of them are married, but they live in Nacogdoches. And then Robbie, who is our next to the youngest son, has 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. Lana Gale is married to Bobby Fight, and then Jennifer and Jeffrey. And they all live in White House and Tyler. And then David lives still in Grand Prairie, and he has 1 daughter, Laura.
Tell me about your life. What brought you to Grand Prairie, Texas?
The work at my dad moved down here, and to go to work at the plant, and we came because he was here. Right. We had some roots here, so.
And who was the minister at 8th Street Baptist Church when you first became affiliated with them?
Brother Housewright.
Brother Housewright.
Yeah.
He's going to be in that lineage of preachers that I believe you've had 5
Yeah.
wonderful pastors during all of that time.
Yeah, he was. Actually, I'm thinking that he probably knocked on our door and invited us to come to church in a tent that was down there on 8th Street and Skyline.
Oh, what a heritage you have then. That's not only from the ground floor up, that's from the dirt floor up.
The dirt floor up, that's
yes,
true.
Yes, all right. Yeah. We're going to get back with you for a little bit more about church in a little, but Dennis, let's get Dennis Brown. I know that you're a longtime member. Tell us a little bit about your history, and your parents, I know, worship there also. Give us your parents' name and some information about you.
Well, Ruthie, we moved to Grand Prairie in 1949, and we became affiliated with 8th Street Baptist Church around 1954. And my dad was Harold Brown, and he attended church there. Brother Housewright was the pastor.
All right.
And my mother, Fanny Brown, she's still a member there and attends today. And then there was my sister Brenda and I, and we have been there through all 5 pastors.
How wonderful.
And it's a great church. We weren't there with the tent, but we were in the original building, a little white building that sat on the corner of Southeast 8th and Skyline was there when we first started going to church there.
And tell us about your own personal family too.
Well, I am married to used to be Linda Ussery and Linda Brown. We've been married,
a bunch of years.
A bunch of years. We have 3 children. Rodney, who is married and blessed us with a grandson in July of last year. He's a year old, Justin, and he's kind of the light of our life right now. And then I have two daughters, Shelley and Becky. And Rodney and Teresa are fixing to move to Plano. Teresa is his wife. And my two daughters still live at home.
And they're carrying Justin all the way to Plano?
Well, no. Granny keeps him on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then they have a babysitter that keeps him on Wednesday through Friday. And usually a couple of days a week I get to go pick him up and take him home and spoil him a little bit till Granny gets home or Mom and Dad comes and picks him up.
Tell us a little bit about your church life. I know you sing. You sang in the capers, in the choirs for Grand Prairie High School as a former Gopher. Do you still do that at church?
Yes, I do, Ruthie. I've always loved gospel singing, and I've always felt that the good Lord enabled me to sing, and He gave me that talent to use to bring honor and glory to His name. And I started singing at church when I was just a young boy, 8, 9 years old. And over the years, I've sang in the choir and different quartets. And still today, I'm involved very much in the music of our church with our music director, Dennis Huddleston. We have a quartet that travels and sings throughout the Metroplex. And in addition to that, I do solos and sing in the choir.
Wonderful.
And just whatever they need me to do. We have a youth choir. The Lord blessed us with a youth choir. We're small in number, but we're hoping to grow more this year. We started it, and I'm directing that. We have rehearsals and trying to get our kids involved in music to carry on the tradition. We're going to have some young people one of these days to step in and take our place.
You bet.
And the other thing that we do is, pertaining to music, is we started this year an outreach program on Tuesday nights. We go and our folks that are members of our church who are homebound, unable to attend church on a regular basis, we usually go. We have anywhere from about 12 to 14 people. And we go to their homes, we visit with them, and we usually sing about a 45-minute concert for them and let them know that we miss them and that we love them and that they're not forgotten, that they're still part of 8th Street.
That's wonderful. All right, we need to get back to Pastor Heath now, and let's have a little bit of the history of the church. Do you think you'd like to tell everyone in the viewing audience some of the records that you have and why you're celebrating this coming Lord's Day?
Well, the experience I've had is just the last almost 17 years of the 50 years of existence. Gleaning from records and all, I understand that Brother A.R. Housewright was the missionary pastor, and he had the support of the Dallas County folks, and he began a mission here in Grand Prairie in 1946, and then after some time of preaching and door knocking and laboring, why a church was organized and with 21 members, of which we've already noted that Sister Theo Thomas here is the last charter member that we have in our membership. There are still some charter members, but they have gone on to other places to serve other places. But Sister Theo is still is our only last charter member. And then Brother Housewright stayed for about 12 years, I think, with the church, and then Brother Jack Welch followed him, and after a lengthy ministry, a good ministry here, then he left, and Brother D.C. Jensen followed him. Brother Jensen is the only living ex-pastor that this church has. The other pastors have gone on to glory. Then after he left, Brother Higgins came, Brother Victor Higgins, and he was here about 10 years, and then I followed him in 1980, and been here for almost 17 years, over
Of
16.
all of the exciting things, you've had bus ministries, you've built new buildings, you've built new outbuildings, educational buildings, and et cetera. Of all of the things that have happened during your 17-year tenure, what do you think is the most exciting?
Well, you know, I think one of the exciting things is I'm out in the community here is the fact that I meet people all over this city that have had contact with 8th Street Baptist Church. People that are not members here of our church, but are members in other churches here in Grand Prairie, but they had their contact with God at 8th Street Baptist Church.
Yes.
Can give you some for instances if you'd like. One day I just walked into a barber shop and had a young lady to cut my hair, and she asked me, said, what kind of profession do you do? What do you do? And I said, well, I'm the pastor of 8th Street Baptist Church. She said, oh, I used to go to that church. She said, when I was a young girl, I was converted. I was saved. I met the Lord at that church. I came on one of the buses, and I found the Lord. And she said, now I attend with my husband in a church in Oak Cliff, but said, I will always have a good place in my heart for 8th Street Baptist Church. I remember one evening I was out visiting and got mixed up with my, not the street, but the number of the street, which is usually not too bad for me. I get mixed up with a lot of things. But I knocked on this door, and I thought I was at one place, and I wasn't, of course. An elderly lady came to the door, and after I'd knocked quite a bit, she came to the door and she said, may I help you? And I said, and I knew immediately that if she lived there, I was at the wrong place, but I said, well, I'm Pastor Heath, pastor of the 8th Street Baptist Church. Oh, she said, you are? I said, I am. Oh, Pastor, please come in. And so I went in her home, into her living room, and she said, I used to be a member of that church for a long, long time. And so she began to ask me about folks that she knew, that I knew in the church, how they were and how they were doing and how their children were doing. And at that particular point, I didn't have the heart to tell her, well, now, I didn't come to visit you. I felt like that the Lord had sent me because she was lonely and she wanted to visit. She said, I don't get visits from pastors. And I said, well, I'm glad to be in your home. And so we talked a little bit, and she said, the reason why I'm not attending 8th Street now is because of my health. I attend a little church here where I am, so I can walk up if I'm able and attend services there. But I guess that's some of the bright things, because it's a combined effort. It's not all the pastor, it's everybody working together, as you well know, and folks are reached for the Lord. And all over this community, all over this city, I meet folks on the street and in the shops and different places that have, we might say, come through 8th Street Baptist Church.
Yes.
They've had their contact with God there and their conversions, and this church has done a lot of good for God in this city, and that's, to me, that's something that I'm really proud of. I really am.
You would almost say that you have a recycling program where you're just
Yes.
sending them on to
Yes.
other places, and
Yes.
they're taking the message around.
So many of the folks, even in the 17 years I've been at 8th Street, so many of them, because of the of work and plants closing down and different things happening, economical situations, so many of them have moved out of town and, of course, gone into other churches to work. So the ministry of 8th Street Baptist Church is not just here, but you know, all over. In fact, we support several hundred missionaries over the world, and
Oh, great.
And in fact, I counted up before I came. Thought it might be of interest. We have about 328 missionaries around the world that we support, and a lot of these missionaries are behind the Iron Curtain, what used to be known as the Iron Curtain. But we do have a real strong missionary program that we support.
That's great. All right. Theo, we're going to have to get back to you now. Let's talk a little bit about the good old days when you were a charter member there and you were raising your family and taking them to 8th Street, and some of the ladies' activities. What are some of the things that you're the proudest of that the 8th Street Baptist Church, and especially the ladies, have done over these years?
Oh, me. People wouldn't believe some of the things that the ladies at 8th Street did. I recall in our first, and this is exciting to me, well, when our first little temporary building was put up, our men all worked. They all had to work to make a living.
Yes.
We were all just poor folks. And I remember us painting the outside of that building. The women
The ladies
painted
did
the
that.
outside. It was just a little old army barracks, but it was beautiful to us because it was in out of the weather. We'd been in a tent, you know. And then after we built the building, after the building was built, the permanent building, we made curtains. The women all got together and made curtains. We always was doing something together.
Yes.
Never went home by ourselves on Sunday. We either went home with somebody or somebody went home with us.
Yes.
You
Well,
know.
did you ever teach in Vacation Bible School
Oh,
or Bible
yes.
class? Tell us
Yes.
about that.
That was one of my fondest memories, was teaching the kids about the Lord in Vacation Bible School. We had so many of our young people saved in Vacation Bible School. And I remember I always taught junior boys. Now, why I got the junior boys, I don't know. I had 4 boys of my own. I guess everybody thought I had a good hand with boys, a
Yes.
strong hand with boys.
Yes.
But I still look and see those boys and know that I had a hand in teaching them about the Lord. I also worked with GAs for years, and now I am helping them do the things that they do in our church.
Yes.
Like Awanas,
Yes.
I helped Susie and Judy with Awanas, and I said, who would have ever thought I would have been on this end and y'all on that end when I was the other way around when they were growing up.
Well, when you all had charge of so many boys and girls that you brought in on buses and everything, how did you entertain them? What did you do for entertainment?
We just taught them. We sang. We had some people who had real ability to get their attention with their actions. I remember thinking, that person is a fool for the Lord, because those kids were watching, seeing wonderful things, and it was all lessons, but it was done in such an offhand manner. You would never think about it being a lesson, but I saw the lessons.
Yes.
The kids saw the lessons.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, and yet it was so rewarding. My husband drove a bus in that bus ministry.
Oh, he
for
did?
all those years that
Yes.
we had.
Did you ever drive a bus?
No.
Not yet?
No, I didn't drive the bus, but I did work on the bus routes. So.
No, that's wonderful. All right, Dennis, before we let Pastor Heath close out with our interview, I'd like for you to tell us, when you were a young man going to church there at 8th Street, of all of the things that impressed you, did you have a favorite Bible teacher, favorite someone that really did spur you on and encouraged you in your singing and other things, so that now that wherever you are now, you feel that that was a great help?
I certainly do, Ruthie. There were a lot of people at 8th Street who influenced my life. One were the pastors. We had good pastors, but there were 2 people in particular that had a big influence on my life, as far as one being a Christian and 2 as far as my singing. The one who had the biggest influence, or large influence, as far as being a Christian and studying the Word of God, is sitting right here beside me, which is Theo Thomas. I was one of those junior boys in her classes. The first Sunday school class that I ever taught was our class. My mom and dad and Theo and Jack were real good friends, and we were over there one Saturday night, and I don't know how we got, but anyway, we were talking about it, and Theo says, why don't you teach the class Sunday morning?
Oh, my.
And I went home and studied, and that was the first Sunday school class that I taught, and I think I might have been 12, 13 years old.
That's great.
The other person who has had a remarkable influence on me, and I guess you might say is my mentor at church, is Herschel Buck.
All right.
He was our first music director, or we called him back then song leader.
Yes.
When Brother Housewright was there, and he was the song leader up until about 1970 when Jerry Christian came in. And I still sing, he sings bass in our quartet today.
Oh, that is
And
wonderful.
so those are the two people that had the most influence over me, and the one that has a lot of influence over me today is sitting right next to you, and Pastor Heath.
Yes, yes, he's keeping his eye on you. Pastor, this coming Lord's Day is your anniversary.
Yes.
And we had hoped to be there to bring this wonderful, wonderful proclamation from the city of Grand Prairie that is already signed by the mayor, and I was going to get to bring it the Lord's Day, but they have us in budget retreat, and since I will not get to be there, I wanted to have the privilege of presenting this on television so that you would have this wonderful proclamation, and it has a lot of good whereases about your church and the marks that they've made in the community. And it says, "Now therefore I, Charles England, on behalf of the citizens of the City Council of Grand Prairie, Texas, do hereby proclaim August the 25th, 1996 as 8th Street Missionary Baptist Church Day in Grand Prairie, Texas." So that's going to be an entire day that's been proclaimed by the mayor, and I wanted to present this to you before we leave, and then I would like you to make some remarks to the General Assembly about how wonderful it is to be a pastor of a church.
Thank you, and we're honored to receive this, and it is an honor, Ruthie, to be the pastor of 8th Street Baptist Church, and I think one of the reasons, probably the main reason, that God has allowed our church to do business for Him for 50 years, we've tried to keep the first things first, and that is we've tried to major on the gospel, because there are folks who need the Lord. And
Yes.
that's what we've tried to do. We've
Yes.
tried to love people for the Lord.
And you plan to stay at 8th Street as long as they'll tolerate you,
Well,
right?
today I do. I really do. I would like to stay, and of course, you know, when you're pastoring a Baptist church, you never know.
That's right. One day at a time.
That's right.
Well,
But they're loving folks. They're good folks.
They are. I want to thank you all for coming and sharing just a few highlights of all those 50 years. Couldn't we write a book about this?
Yes.
It would just be so exciting. And
Yes.
I want to thank you, Dennis, for making these arrangements.
And we want to tell our viewers that we are having our 50th anniversary this Lord's Day, and we wouldn't want to take anybody away from their church. But if they would like to come, we would say welcome to them to come.
And the time?
At 10:30.
10:30.
We're going to start our service at
August
10:30.
the 25th.
Sunday morning, August 25th,
That's wonderful.
10:30. And we'll have singing in the afternoon. Maybe they could come for that if they couldn't come for the
At
service.
1:30.
At 1:30.
Dennis, Theo, Pastor, it was wonderful to have you.
Thank
with
you.
us. And this is Ruthie Jackson, and history is as we live and do. Thank you.